Alright, so hello world, welcome back to first Django tutorial. So today we're going to talk about route and template. Alright, so some Django comments that you should always remember. I'm just going to put that in the readme. By the way, this is also available at GitHub, which you can go to at github.com/devsme/Django-tutorial. So so you're just gonna say Django tutorial important Django comment. So not really Django. First is bash. Alright, so first is pip3 install Django. This is install Django using Python's package manager, and then you can use Django-admin start project with your project name to start a new project, create a project, and start, and then Python 3 manage.py run server, start the Django server, and then finally Python 3 manage.py start app name. We're gonna go over each one of them, and then it's gonna create a new app within the given project. Alright, so now this is some important commands. If you haven't, go ahead and execute this. I'm gonna execute but using /upgrade, so make sure I'm on the most current version. We'll just give it a sec. So again, the most current version of Django is actually 3 now, I believe. The released version 3. Let's just wait it for a little bit to let this install. Alright, so now it should installed. Good. So this is how you Django, by the way, if you're using Windows, it's pip, not pip3. And now I can start a new project within this project directory. So I'm just gonna say Django admin start project. Let's call this Django. Let's just call this Django app. And then, which I don't know why sometimes doesn't show, but you can see now I suppose to have 2. So I think sometimes experiencing some issue. Let me just get a quick refresh here. So I need to make sure that everything is working. So we have that. Alright, now I got the Django app. Okay, so I need to CD into the Django app anyway, so Django app. So Django app is not an actual app. Sorry for naming it a little bit confusingly. It's a project that stores stuff. So now if we go ahead and in our terminal, if we go ahead and say Django Python 3, notice that we have a manage.py here. This is a file that we interact using when we interact with this file. When you try to start a server, we'll make some SQL migrations, etc. We'll talk all about that in just a little bit. Not SQL migration, I'll talk SQL in a little bit later. But to run the server, you can just say Python 3 manage.py run server. And now you can see it's available at here. And then let me make a new window. Paste it here. And now you can see this is the default homepage. Django 3.0. Alright, so this is how it works. Just choose to color it out. Alright, so this is our first Django app. Now, but realize that let's make an example for Google or some big tech company. Just to make an example for Google. So what Google have is think about the multiple services they provide. Don't just provide Google Search. They provide Google Drive, Google Doc, Google News, lots of Google stuff. Realize that maybe it's you can realize in the Django project it's separated into some different projects. Different app. Different app. So we can use to manage these different app better by separate them out. So it's not like Flash where we have huge chunk of code. So in our bit.ly clone, what we can say is we could probably create an app. We don't really have to create an app because it's not big. But when it's big, we can see, okay, we need an app for register, log in, log out. We also need an app for actual shortened URL. We also need an app for API, blah, 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 something like that. So to create a new app, you can use this command, Python 3 manage.py start app with your app name. We're just going to call this first app. And now, what you should see is, I don't know why this is experiencing some issue. Clearly experiencing some issue. So let me close this really quick. Experiencing some issue, I don't know why. When I'm using Django commands, it doesn't really work. Should I possibly report an issue? I don't know. But now you can see we got a first app going. And now you can see we got lots of more files, which if you want to see it in depth, how I did go over them briefly about what each file do. But basically, this is a import-export basic file. This is admin.py for an admin page. We're going to talk about that in the later videos. Apps.py, I don't think that's necessary. Models.py is where you keep track of your SQL stuff. Tests is to automatically test your file. And views is the most arguably the one of the most important app. Okay, so now realize that we create a new app, right? It's called first app. So what this first app does is we're just gonna demo some thing you can do in Django. So notice that first is we will go ahead and create a file in this first app, and then we'll call this file urls.py. So this is where we will keep track of different URLs within this specific app. Notice that we have another urls.py here. It's the overall urls.py, so the whole entire project's url.py. We're not going to worry about that. In just a little bit, we're going to finish this within the little app first. So what we can say is we could say from Django.url import pass, and I'm gonna say from dot import views, and then we're gonna define URL patterns pass view dot index name is index. Alright, so what's happening here is first we import a class. I'm not sure is that class or I'm pretty sure something like class from a Django's URLs. Note that we will have a lot of opportunity to work with Django's URL. Django is really powerful. And then notice I will also use this from dot import views, which means from current directory, which is within the first app directory, Gonna import views.py. So gonna import views, this whole module, this whole Python file, and then we're gonna use this to specify the specific function we're gonna use to associate with the path. So URL patterns is a variable name that's you don't need. I don't think you can change to make it work. So just don't change it. And it's a list that contains all the possible paths. So the first argument is the route. So the actual route. So for example, I'm currently at index route, and then if I go somewhere like book, I'm at book route, and then if I'm right profile, so I'm at profile route, something like that. So this is the route itself, and this is the function that's going to define later in views.py, and this is the name which we'll use to reference this specific route. So if we leave it empty, it just means it's index. And then what's going to happen here is let's go ahead and create our views.py, so our first function. And now what's going to happen is just a sec. Okay, so now what we'll do is we'll go ahead and associate this. So first is we're gonna import another. Let me check this warning really quick. Okay, views. Alright, so now what will happen is we'll say from Django.http import http response. I'm pretty sure this is how you should write this. And now we'll go out create a function that's gonna just call index. Recall the index function is the one we associate earlier, the route, and then by default it's just gonna take in request parameter or argument. So request contains some important information like what HTTP request it use. We're gonna talk about that when we're dealing with form submission and sessions, stuff like that. But here I'm just gonna return HTTP response hello world. And now notice that this already starts to get complicated. This is look like exactly the same thing I could done in Flask by just importing Flask module app equals Flask underscore name underscore and then as an app.route equals slash and then define index. We don't even need this request parameter. And we don't even need this HTTP response actually. And you can just return hello world. Now you can see it's getting really complicated, and you can see that we only did the few things, but we touched multiple files. And now we're actually going to touch two more files. First is settings.py. We need to actually add this to the if we take a look here on installed app, we need to add our app, which is called first app. We need to add this to here so we know that's okay. This is also the app I'm going to be using. Don't have to worry about that too much. And then we also need to in this URL.py, so in the master, which is Django app, and then in here notice that we said /admin route, this admin. We'll worry about that later, about admin page. But in here we will say is from Django .urls import include, and then we're gonna say okay, let's go ahead and put our route, so link our route from our first app to our master route. So we know that because recall that each app is within a big project, and the big project have a URL. Each small app also have a URL. So you need link to a file together, and then we could just say first app include first app .urls. So this basically includes all the URLs from our first app directory. And now let's head back to here, and I think we're done. So now let's go ahead and restart the server and take a look. What did we just create? And now if you go refresh, and now you can see since I started replacing it, if I just say first app, and now you can see hello world, let me make it bigger, popped on the screen. Okay. Now you can start realize, okay, why do I even use Django? It's much more complicated. I did exactly the same thing in Flask that's about 5 lines can take care of, but in this short amount of time, I already modified like 5 different files. But don't worry, as we go through this tutorial, you will be found out really how powerful Django is. Although to tell the truth, I really prefer Flask more because some of the customizability and maybe just personal preference. But just personal preference, but in an unbiased point of view, it's really powerful. Alright, so now we're gonna talk about, so now it's cool and all, but what if we want to not just say hello world, but say hello people's name actually. So what I could possibly do is just create more app, so we don't need Django app here. So first app, what I could say is, let me just copy, and then let me just say dev is me. And I think it's auto debug mode, so I don't have to explicitly set that. And then if I go to slash dev is me, whoops, I mean, it should give us the same thing because let me just say dev is me here, and then in views, let me go ahead and define dev is me function. And then I'm just gonna say hello, dev is me. Alright, so now if you try to refresh, let's give it a chance to reload. And now if you go refresh this page, and now you can see hello, dev is me. But you can realize it start to getting a huge problem. Just make it full screen. When we try to deal with every people's name. So I'm gonna greet every people's name based on their URL. So what we could do is we could use converter. Recall if you follow my Flask tutorial, converter is a placeholder in a route. So instead of saying dev is me, I can just say stir name. And now in here, I can just say define a function. I just say hello. And then in views.py, what I can say instead is hello. And just like in Flask, it's going to provide an additional argument with whatever the placeholder name you named, which is name here. And you can see we use stir instead of string in Flask. And then this represents must be a string, which is basically like everything. And now what we could do is instead of return dev is me, I can just return name. And now let's give a sec to let everything reload. Okay. So now if I refresh, I say dev is me, great. Now if I say Ron, hello Ron, someone that is fake. I can see hello, someone that is fake. So that's how converter is in use, as you may imagine from some social media or GitHub. Like you can go to github.com/your GitHub username to see all your information that will maybe actually happening underneath the hood. Okay, so now we create a Django app. Let's just go ahead and do a quick brief high-level overview of what we just did. We created 2 routes. And then first, let's go to first. So first install the Django, then create a project, then create an app within the project. Then we create URLs.py within that app to keep track of all the URLs within this app. And then we link the URLs.py somehow to the master with the project's URLs.py. Alright, so that's already a lot of stuff. And then, so for the last thing today we're going to talk about is this render function, which is going to even probably make you more confusing. But let's talk about render templates. So recall that in Flask we have a function to render a template, which is so we can make our stuff more beautiful, right? So we don't have to worry about. So like you can imagine that just return this can get boring and not stylistic really quick. So how do we return HTML template? Well, let me go ahead and associate HTML here. And then I'm going to change this name to hello, and this to HTML. And now here, what we're going to do is we're going to define a new function called HTML, taking request. By the way, request is an argument that's always going to take, it's always going to have. And then here, we're just going to say it's return render. And now render taking a few things. It's taking request also. And then it's taking the template name, as you can see now from the hint it gives me. So first app / index.html. And now what you could also do is provide a dictionary of values to pass it in. So some variable that you can reference later in the templates. If you want to know more, you can feel free to watch my Flask tutorial. I'm not going to go deep on how Django's templating language is used because it's really similar. If not exactly the same, it's not exactly the same, but as Flask templating language, which is known as Django. And then, yeah, so now what we need to do is actually creating the templates, which we're going to create within this first app. So I'm going to create a directory called templates, but notice that we add a first app directory to it, so we need to also create a first app directory, and then here what we can say is create an index.html. And now we just say, okay, it doesn't work. Alright, and now I can say hello world. This is an HTML template. And now what we could say is this should work. So before I get started, before I go and refresh the page, I just don't want to realize why did I use this. It's because usually when you have multiple apps, it may conflict the file name sometimes if you have multiple index.html within the different app. So usually this is the standard Django use. Yeah, usually you will specify a directory within the templates with your app's name and with your file after it. You don't have to do this, but it's just a style get-ish thing that we usually tend to follow. And now if we go to here, now you could see, whoops. So what's happening here is it doesn't, because it think it's this, but it's not. So what we'll say is let's do HTML/. And now let's wait a second to refresh. By the way, you notice that it's written in a different way. So in Flask, what we usually write is like this, but in Django it's a trailing spaces after it. So it's after the route and there's no front slash before it. So that's probably a thing that you'll probably realize. Okay, so I will move this lower because it probably still thinks it's a name. So some position of your route also matter, especially when we have like these, this overall. What? You know what? I'm just gonna say slash. Alright, now it should work. Yeah. So now you can see it said hello world. This is an HTML template. Alright, so this is a brief introduction again, and we talk about route and templates. in Django. Hope you like this video. If you do want to support my channel, feel free to like and subscribe to my channel. As always, thanks for watching. See you next time. And a cliffhanger for the next video is we're going to talk about obviously more on Django. I don't want to spoil any secret. Again, you can find it in GitHub, link down in the description below. Thanks for watching. See you next time. Have a nice day.